Human history is often framed as a story of accumulation. Each generation inherits the knowledge of the last, adds to it, and passes it forward. This assumption underpins how we understand progress. Yet the archaeological and historical record tells a far less stable story. Knowledge does not only accumulate, it disappears, sometimes quietly, sometimes violently, and sometimes so completely that later civilizations never realize what is missing. The ancient world was not ignorant. It was observant, experimental, and deeply engaged with its environment. Many early societies possessed sophisticated understandings of astronomy, engineering, medicine, and ecology, understandings that did not always survive them. When we look at ancient ruins, we are not just seeing what was built. We are seeing what remained after loss. What matters most is not what ancient people knew, but what they forgot. Across the ancient world, there are moments where knowledge appears abruptly, functions effectively for centuries, and then vanishes. Techniques are abandoned. Skills are no longer transmitted. Systems that once worked are no longer understood. Later societies encounter the remains and assume primitiveness, not realizing they are standing atop forgotten expertise. One of the clearest examples is ancient engineering. Megalithic structures across the globe, massive stone constructions weighing tens or hundreds of tons, were assembled with precision that still challenges modern explanation. The stones at Baalbek, the pyramids of Giza, the walls of Sacsayhuaman, and the temples of Göbekli Tepe all suggest mastery of stoneworking and logistics far beyond what their supposed technological context would imply. What is striking is not just that these structures exist, but that the techniques used to build them were not preserved. Later cultures often reused the sites but could not replicate the methods. In many cases, architectural quality declined over time rather than improved. This runs counter to the idea of linear progress. Ancient builders understood stone not merely as material, but as system. They selected quarries with intention. They shaped stones to fit together without mortar, achieving stability through geometry and weight distribution. These methods required accumulated experience passed across generations. When that chain broke, the knowledge vanished. The same pattern appears in ancient medicine. Early medical traditions combined observation, herbal knowledge, and ritual practice. Some treatments were effective enough to persist in modified forms. Others disappeared entirely. Texts were lost. Oral traditions were interrupted. What survived was partial. Later societies often rediscovered fragments and treated them as innovation rather than inheritance. Astronomy offers another example. Ancient cultures tracked celestial cycles with extraordinary precision. They aligned monuments to solstices and equinoxes. They recorded planetary movements. These observations required long-term data collection, sometimes spanning centuries. When societies collapsed or reorganized, that continuity was broken. Calendars were reset. Observational records were lost. Knowledge that depended on uninterrupted measurement could not be reconstructed easily. What vanished was not intelligence, but memory. Knowledge is fragile because it depends on systems, education, apprenticeship, institutions, and stability. When those systems fail, knowledge does not degrade gradually. It can disappear abruptly. Environmental disruption plays a major role in this process. When survival becomes uncertain, specialization collapses. Skills that are not immediately useful are abandoned. Knowledge that cannot be practiced is forgotten. This is why periods of crisis are often followed by cultural simplification. Writing disappears. Monumental construction stops. Art becomes less complex. This is not regression in ability, but adaptation to constraint. Yet over time, societies forget that anything else existed. Later civilizations encounter ancient remains and assume superiority. They see ruins and imagine primitiveness. They underestimate the complexity that once supported those structures. The loss of knowledge is compounded by reinterpretation. When later cultures cannot understand ancient techniques, they mythologize them. They attribute them to gods, giants, or supernatural forces. This does not mean the ancients believed these explanations literally. It means the original knowledge framework was gone. Myth fills the gaps left by loss. Libraries represent another dimension of this disappearance. Knowledge, once recorded, still requires preservation. Fires, floods, political upheaval, and neglect can erase centuries of accumulated learning in moments. The destruction of major libraries did not just remove books. It removed context, commentary, and cross-generational dialogue. What survives in fragments often loses its original meaning. Even when texts endure, interpretation changes. Symbols shift. Languages evolve. Without continuity, written knowledge becomes opaque. Meaning erodes. The greatest loss may not be technical knowledge, but systemic understanding. Ancient societies often organized themselves around balance between environment and consumption, ritual and labor, authority and community. These systems were adaptive within their context. When conditions changed, those systems sometimes failed, but the principles behind them were not always recorded explicitly. They existed in practice, not theory. When practice stopped, the principle vanished. This is why collapse is so effective at erasing knowledge. It does not just remove people. It interrupts repetition. And repetition is how humans remember. The irony is that many ancient societies left warnings encoded in stories, monuments, and myths. They understood impermanence. They knew that collapse was possible. Yet knowing that collapse exists is not the same as preserving knowledge through it. When we study the past, we often search for lost technologies, machines, tools, or methods that feel dramatic. But the most important losses are quieter. Ways of organizing society, ways of managing resources, ways of thinking across generations. Future societies may look at us the same way. They may recover fragments of our technology without understanding the systems that made it function. They may replicate devices, but not the values or structures that supported them. Knowledge without context is unstable. The ancient world teaches us that progress is reversible, that memory is conditional, that intelligence does not guarantee preservation. What was lost may never be fully recovered, not because it was impossible to understand, but because the chain of transmission was broken. And once broken, history does not rewind. It moves forward, carrying absence with it. The knowledge humanity lost is not a mystery because it was hidden. It is a mystery because it was interrupted. Subscribe to this channel for more. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a story lost to time.